All right. U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, Office of Research and Development, Washington, D.C. 20590. This is FRA Ordinance 07-03I, February 2007 final report. This document is available to the U.S. public through National Technical Information Services in Springfield, Virginia 22161. Rail Crew Resource Management Pilot Crew Resource Management Training Development and Implementation. Notice this document is disseminated under the sponsorship of the Department of Transportation, Interest in Information in the United States government, assuming no liability for the contents for thereof. The United States government does not endorse products, trade or manufacturers' names appear herein solely because they are considered essential to the objective of this report. All right, zooming in. Report documentation number, Office of Management, budget number 070188. Public reporting burden for collection information estimated to average 1 per hour per response, including time reviewing instructions, searching existing data sources, gathering, maintaining data, completing, reviewing collection forms, sending comments regarding the burden and estimate, other aspects of collection information, including suggestions for reducing the burden to Washington Headquarters Service Director of Information Operation reports 1215 Jefferson Davis Highway, Suite 1204, Arlington, Virginia 222024302 in the Office of Management Budget Paperwork Reduction Project 07022288, Washington, D.C. 20503. Agencies use only the blank report, February 2007 report type and dates covered, research report from January 2003 to September 2005. The title and subtitle is Railroad Crew Resource Management, Pilot Railroad Crew Resource Management, Training Development Implementation. Authors Curtis Morgan, Leslie E. Olson, Tobin B. Kite, and Stephen S.F. Rope. Performing organization name and address, Texas Transportation Institution, and the Texas and A&M University System, College Station, TX 7784333135. Performing organization report number 4744500003. Sponsoring monitoring agency and address, U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Railroad Administration, 1112 Vermont Avenue, North to West, Washington, D.C. 20590. FRA Ordinance 07-03I. Supplementary notes, Research Project Corporation with the ENSCO, Incorporated Railroad Administration Research Project title, Crew Maintenance within the Railroad Operating Environment. This document is available at the National Technical Information Services, Springfield, Virginia 22161. This report summarizes the work undertaken by the Texas Transportation Institution to develop and implement a pilot program of a rail-based crew resource management training that can be used in a variety of crafts throughout the railroad. Pilot program does what follows the previous documentation types of teams that exist in the railroad industry and state rail, civil crew resource management training at the U.S. Class 1 railroads with the Texas Transportation Institute, completed documentation and separate report of the Federal Railroad Administration in September 2003. The pilot program builds upon the training methods, procedures identified in earlier work. This report, documentation of the development of the program experiences encountered implementation of railway division. The report represents the pre-training, post-training survey participation that were administered during the pilot course, measures the effectiveness and acceptance of the training program materials. The study also includes recommendation of further steps to broaden the career resource management with railroad industry. Subject terms: crew resource management, CRM, railroad safety, situational awareness, organizational culture, teaming, crew, and training method. Number of pages 55. Price code, limitation abstract, security classification abstract, unclassified security classification on page, unclassified security classification unclassified. All right. Metric to English conversions, length, inches, English to metric, metric to English, Length, area, mass, weight, volume, temperature, quicken, inch, centimeter length, conversion, quick Fahrenheit, Celsius, temperature conversion. All right, list of figures, list of tables, acknowledgement, executive summary, pilot, rail, crew resource management, training program development project, background, identification of teams, training programs, identifying, developing rail, crew review resource management, learning objectives, identifying, developing rail, crew resource management scenarios. 2. Testing implementation of pilot rail crew resource management training program. Pilot testing, presenting the course materials of the pilot rails crew resource management training delivery. Course content, description, analysis of pilot crew resource management program. Characteristics, training, participation. Evaluation of crew resource management training, developing of the railroad crew management attitudes and questionnaire RCMAQ, and issues related to the broader rail crew resource management and training implementation. Additional tasks related to the crew resource management training implementation. Recurrent training recommendations, crew resource facilitator training, and future of crew resource management railroad industry acronyms. List of figures, number of train accidents per year and primary cause, transportation crews, engineering crews, mechanical crews, age of training participant, number of 139 years of service of the participation, N37, 137, distribution responsible item. I found the train is to be enjoyable. Distribution response to the item, the train was just job relevant. The training was just job relevant. Distribution and response item, the training had practical value. Figure 10, distribution response to item. To what degree will the training influence your ability to learn later to perform your job? Main sources of the RCAMAQ communications and coordination scale, administrating training tracking, main scores of the RCMAQ recommendation stressor effects and scales, administrative training track. List of tables, differing terminology for the core crew resource management skills by industry. Table 2, a pilot rail crew resource management training location, dates, and class sizes. Acknowledgements. The author would like to thank Dr. Thomas Rathler, Scott Kyle, Ralph Ellison, David Green of the Federal Railroad Administration, Ed Lombardi, Brian Whitten, and ENSCO Incorporated for the financial operational support we received in this project. We also liked the BNSF Railway for the assistance for the permission to test pilot program materials of the BNSF Text Division. Special divisions of the BNSF were available helping the project and include the John Grundman, Alan Lindsay, David Legalski, Mark Schultz, Ron Overhault, Daniel Rankin, Bobby Curry, Mike Knight, Larry Trimble, Marlon Gaunt, Daryl Jones, Darren Tyler, Silas Miller. We also would like to thank Texas and AMM community for helping the project. Special thanks with Willie Lower of the Texas Engineering Extension Services who helped the curriculum development in the early stage of this project. With Sharon Thigpen, Marcy Avray, Texas A&M Research Foundation, who would like to help the contracting issues. Executive summary. Purpose of this report. The report summarizes the work undertaken by the Texas Transportation Institute Development Implementation Pilot Program, rail-based crew resource management training that can be varied use for varied crafts throughout the railroad industry. Pilot program developed and following the previous task. Documentation types of teams exist in the industry and state of the rail crew resource management training at U.S. Class 1 railroads of the Texas Transportation Institute completed with the documented as in a separate report, Federal Railroad Administration in September 2003. The pilot program begins with the training method and procedures identified earlier in the work. The report documentation program development experience encountered in implementing in the railroad division level. The report represents the data of the pre-training, post-training surveys of the participation that were administered during pilot courses as measures of effectiveness, acceptance, and training program materials. These studies include recommendation on further steps of broadening the crew resource management implementation within the railroad industry. Project background. During the past 4 years at Research Texas Technical Texas Transportation Institute worked with the FRA, BNSF Freight Railway, Burlington North Santa Fe Railway to develop and improving the crew resource management course in the U.S. railroad industry. Initial include site visits, the cross section of the railroad type, the variation, U.S. locations, identification, rail team, makeup, task, classification, railroad team, subsequential task included designing pilot implementation and crew resource management training courses at the various locations on the BNSF, which reports described in the course designed of the training varying railroad crafts and technical proficiency, situational awareness, communication, teamwork, and assertiveness. During the 1980s and 1990s, the U.S. industry adopted the Human Factors Training course of the Crew Resource Management. Crew Resource Management first became widely used in commercial area industry, military aviation, shipboard crews, medical surgical teams, offshore oil crew, nuclear power plant operating crews, or high consequences, high risk terminal crash. Critical industry soon is followed. The success of the Crew Resource Management Program is reducing the number of airline accidents attributed to human error. Promoted by the National Transportation Safety Bureau, recommended that a trained Crew Resource Management Program was to be developed at the U.S. railroad industry and the NTSB. To recommend that the Trained Crew Resource Management Program, U.S. Railroad, NTSB, 1999. The need for such program becomes evident considering the overall 12 period between 1992 and 2012. Human factors accidents where humans were determined the primary cause. They have accounted for 42% of all railroad accidents, FRA 2005. In response to the National Transportation Surface Board recommendation, Association of American Railroads, Northern Southfolk, NS to jointly develop the video-based crew resource management training course was orientated largely to train operating crews, engineering conductors, several FRA offices, safety personnel, safety managers. Several railroads were interested in crew resource management. Training applied more broadly across the more varied crafts and skills within the railroad industry that led the approach of the Texas Transportation Institute seeking the development of the pilot rail crew resource management course. This could be used as needed. Developing the pilot rail crew resource management training course. The Texas Transportation Institute, based on its pilot crew resource management training program upon team classification models developed by the FRA during the earlier phases of the project, research determined that the facilitator-led scenario-based training program was the most effective method of initial crew resource management awareness. In order to meet the needs of reach the broad base of the railroad crafts, research developed a core curriculum of crew resource management topics and flexibility to select a scenario based on the makeup of the class participation. To achieve research developed in three basic training tracks of the crew resource management identified with the training tracks with the example of the crafts and where the transportation locomotive engineers, conductors, dispatchers, switchmen, and brakemen, engineering section, gangs, maintenance of the way, or MOW, signal machine, signal maintainers, electrical catenary crews, mechanical, machinists, electricians, pipe fitters, and carmen. Each training is supported by several scenarios that its own craft are in order to ensure the training of the job relevation for the class participation. Chapter 1 includes further information of the course development. Implementation testing of the pilot course materials. Once the course curriculum was nearly completing the support scenario, developed a research schedule, several training classes for the host railroad to the pilot testing materials. A total of 9 transportation classes, 6 engineering classes have been held, resulting training of 86 personnel and 100 engineering personnel. Due to several events that described in the report, the mechanical track materials have not been pilot tested. Chapter 2 describes information of implementation pilot testing of the program. Analysis of pilot rail crew resource management program. During the administration of the pilot of the crew resource management program, classes pre- and post-training survey was given to each of the class. Variety analysis could be performed to assess the effectiveness of the training materials. Evaluation consisted of several measures of participation characteristics such as attitudes, knowledge gain, participation about the content of the course material. The analysis shows the class was received in locations where the pilot training took place. Chapter 3 provides a detailed analysis graph showing the participation characteristics. Recommendations. The final chapter reporting several recommendations regarding the implementation of the crew resource management within the railroad industry. Several of these recommendations were related to the needs for the current retraining of the follow-up and initial training conducted during the pilot testing program. The research team recommends implementing the crew resource management program for all railroad crafts throughout the railroad industry. Both management and labor should be involved with the process, along with the input of the FRA on the course of the contract, proving the crew resource management for the other industries implemented to address the human factors related to the errors, accidents occurring on the rail industry. The research team also recommended the FRA and the railroad company safety training experts be identified and trained in facilitating the crew resource management training classes through railroad industry. The experience and expertise of the highly trained individuals will give them added credibility. The crew resource management concepts, railroad personnel that could be immediately achieved with the group outside of subject matter experts, crew resource management, human factors training. Chapter 1, Pilot Rail Crew Resource Management Training Program Development.